as parents, we in essence have a long-term lease with our children. As parents, we in essence have a long-term lease with our children. A long-term lease. So what do I mean by that? If you really think about it, as parents, you have a lease on your kids for about roughly 2 decades, give or take a couple of years. But you in essence have a lease. It's like you have a long-term lease, like a long-term, rental, so to speak, for roughly 2 decades. What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, and welcome to another episode of Black Fathers Now. Fellas, I hope y'all are making it happen. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope you're enjoying yourself in the process. Again, making it happen does not have to be grunt work, right? We can make it happen and enjoy ourselves in the process, because how we approach everything matters. It's not always what we do. What we do matters, but how we do it really matters. That's the lasting impact, right? I think, was it Maya Angelou that said, I don't always remember what somebody said, but you always remember how someone made you feel, right? That's kind of a loose interpretation of it. But how we do things matter. Doesn't always matter what we do, but it always matters how we do it. So be mindful about that. So make things happen, but try your best to enjoy yourself in the process. And and thinking of process, sitting down talking to the kids last night, at bedtime, and wife and I were in the room with them as the lights were off, and they were in the bed, and we were just kind of talking to them as they went to sleep. Something came to me that I never really thought about before, and it's in regards to parenting. And the reality is, as parents, we in essence have a long-term lease with our children. As parents, we in essence have a long-term lease with our children. A long-term lease. So what do I mean by that? If you really think about it, as parents, you have a lease on your kids for about roughly 2 decades, give or take a couple of years. But you in essence have a lease. It's like you have a long-term lease, like a long-term, rental, so to speak, for roughly 2 decades. And in that 2-decade period, it's incumbent upon us to instill concepts, principles, model behaviors, give them tactics, education, where our job is to equip them over that 2-decade period so that they can then go out and live their life, so that they can go out and make an impact in the world, so they can go out and take care of themselves and create and build families and leave legacies for the generations after them to build upon. But the reality is, we have a long-term lease on our children. Because, I think about the relationship with my parents, and and then paying attention to my contemporaries and their relationships with their parents. And what's interesting is, our relationships change as we become adults, as we do our own thing, as we move to other cities, as we have our own children, as we take care of our own responsibilities. We love our parents. We call and we check in on our parents. We go and visit our parents. We help our parents, But the reality is, it's more so a relationship of advisors and, someone to bounce ideas off of versus someone telling me what to do. So the relationship changes, and typically that relationship changes, around that 2-decade mark, where you're no longer viewed as this entity that I'm supposed to coach and, direct and model to and all of that. It goes to, I hope I've done a good job. Now it's time for you to go and put some of these things into action. Now, if you need help along the way, then I'm here. I'm an advisor. I'm a consultant. I can be a friend type entity for you because you're an adult now. And I'm no longer in a position in which, it's my job to raise you. But it just made me think about it, man. Like, sometimes we view our children in different ways. And then for me, for some reason, this thing came up, the concept of a long-term lease. And in essence, that's what our children are to us. Roughly 2 decades. But in that 2 decades, we have a job. We have responsibilities, because if you think about it, we do not want to still be parenting, and I'm using air quotes here, in that same fashion 3 decades later or 4 decades later. In some instances that happens. And again, I'm not talking about, if there's a circumstance in which maybe there's a child or something with special needs. I understand that there are different circumstances, right? Different scenarios do come into play in which parenting is definitely different than what a lot of people would define as kind of the normal progression of parenting, right? So I do understand that there are different circumstances, but the reality is, if you have children who are equipped to basically be self-sufficient as they become adults, you roughly have a 2-decade long lease. What are your thoughts on that, man? Like, I don't know why it came to me, and it's just like I felt like dropping that on you, because I think a lot of times with our conversations as far as parenting is concerned, we need to hear different perspectives, but we also have to hear and see things at different angles. And I believe that this perspective on parenting might actually help someone to view what they're doing with their children, with a sense of urgency, one. But then two, maybe it's someone who has a child or a kid who's, approaching that 2-decade mark, and it's time to really equip them to fly, as opposed to thinking that I'm supposed to hardcore parent you, well into your 20s, 30s, and beyond. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Again, my new perspective as a parent is that we, in essence, have a 2-decade long lease on our children, because after that, we morph into consultants, advisors, and friends or confidants of our kids. What are your thoughts there? All right. Well, hey, fellas, again, I hope this was something that makes you think a little bit. And I hope it's something that you can, process and then potentially take action on in regards to thinking about your relationship with your children. Again, at different ages, they're at different stages, and so they need different things. And so hopefully this thought process is something that might allow you to think about the relationship that you have with your kids, the sense of urgency you have right now to instill things and into them that they can take and go forward with to, to be able to be self-sufficient and take care of themselves. Because, truthfully, again, we want to parent for a while, but after a while, we want to be cool with our kids, and we want to, enjoy having grandkids, after they're married and, self-sufficient and all of that stuff. We want to enjoy having grandkids come over to visit and all of that, but we have to prepare them for all of that. So what are we going to do with this 20-year or this 2-decade long lease that we have with our children? All right, fellas, just a thought. Well, hey, as always, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com. Subscribe via all the different podcast listening apps, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Amazon Alexa, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Please leave comments. Please share this podcast out. I mean, we got well over 150 episodes now, and we really have some really dope interviews coming forth for you going forward. So definitely subscribe, listen, leave comments, leave ratings, share with your friends, and until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise, and I'll holla at you. Peace.
Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holla at you. Peace.